I was not a very peaceful person by any means. I was very angry. I used to say, I'm pissed off and the whole world owes me. That was my motto. And I sold drugs and I took advantage of people, and I wasn't a very nice guy. And then I managed to meet somebody who thought that I was better than that, and I started to be better than that. She wound up becoming my wife, and we started going to the gym. She wanted to get healthier, and she asked me if I wanted to go to a yoga class with her, and I was just trying to be supportive, so I said I would go. And it was incredibly hard. I was sweating bullets in a air-conditioned room with fans going on the ceiling, and I was trying to hold my arms up above my head, and I kept thinking, why is this so hard? I'm not holding weight up there. I'm just holding my arms up. And that thought is what made me go back. I left that class thinking something was wrong with me. And I found out many years later that actually that's what the yoga masters say, is when you come to yoga because you find that you have a sense of something wrong with yourself or the world in general. And that was exactly what happened. I was like, there's something wrong with me. I need to go back and figure this out. So I was kind of into it at the gym for a while, and strangely enough, my buddy that lived in Boston started doing hot yoga at this place in Cambridge. And he kept telling me I had to come try it out, and I was like, you're crazy, man. Like, I'm sweating bullets in an air-conditioned room. Why would I put myself in the heat? He's like, oh, it's so awesome. You gotta come try it. You gotta come try it. And I kept turning him down. And well, of course, this one night we're hanging out, and we'd been doing Molly and rolling all night. And at some point during the night, he's like, you have to come take this class tomorrow at 4:30. And of course, I'm on Molly, and so I'm super agreeable. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go. I'll be there. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. But I'm also the kind of person that says if I'm gonna do something that I will follow through. So I was like, woke up the next day all strung out, and I'm like, took a shower and had some food. I'm like, all right, I gotta drive into the city and go to this class. And I get there, and it's packed. There's like 85 people, like wall-to-wall people, and it's the teacher comes in the room, and my buddy waves her over, and she's like, have you done yoga before? And I'm like, yeah, a little bit. And she's like, this is an intermediate class, right? And I was like, I'll do the best I can. And she was like, all right. So I made it like maybe 2/3 of the way through the class. I think as soon as we hit the floor, that was pretty much it for me. I was like, all the drugs just rushed back into my system. I was like so high, and I literally I still think about what she must have thought. Like, I'm like laying on my back, just like looking at the ceiling, like I feel amazing right now. And so that shift from having yoga be like this incredibly hard, suffering thing to being like this like beautiful, profound, like awakening experience, that really that was it for me. I mean, from that point on, it pretty much just took over my life. I was doing it as much as I could, and really fascinated by like how it was changing me mentally and emotionally, not just physically, and trying to figure out how that was happening, because I didn't really feel like I was really doing that work, and yet it was still happening to me. And struggling with the spiritual portion of it. Like, I was raised in a really religious household, and I kind of rejected all that. And so the whole, spiritual aspect of yoga was a real struggle for me in the beginning. Of course, ultimately now I've really embraced it, and it's done nothing but enhance my life. But yeah.
Seems like the universe wanted you to find yoga, brought you there. It just was for a reason.
So that same friend that got me into hot yoga wound up learning to teach, and he started working for this place, and they were looking for more teachers. And he asked me if he could teach me to teach. And I notoriously have a big mouth and I say things that piss people off, and that caused me to get into fights all the time. I always felt like I was misunderstood, like people were getting angry at me when I was just trying to express myself. And so I was like, no, I don't. Dude, putting me in front of a room full of people that have to listen to me, that's going to be bad. And he's like, I don't know. I think it might actually work out for you for a change. He's like, why don't you just give it a try? And if you don't like it, then you don't have to do it. So, of course, what have I got to lose? So then, I started teaching, and I never really thought that I would have been a yoga. If you'd told me when I was 20 that I was going to be a yoga teacher, I probably would have beat you up. I would have been like, I don't know what that is. Shut the fuck up. It's so weird, right? But it totally is my what we call dharma in yoga. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. It gives me an incredible amount of fulfillment and joy. And so I was doing it like 50-50, working my day job and teaching yoga classes. And then eventually I got to a point where I had enough classes that I could just live off of teaching yoga. But teaching 20 classes a week is not sustainable really forever. So I realized that if I was going to keep doing this, that I needed to have my own place. And that's when I decided to open up Burning Wheel Yoga School.
Nice. So backtracking a little bit, I want you to expand a little bit more on the concept of Dharma, because when I came here, you kind of sought me out and you were like, hey, would you be interested in teacher training? I was in the same boat as you. I never thought that was something that I would do, get up in front of a room full of people, teach a yoga class, have them listen to me and respect me too. And I definitely feel like that is one of my dharmas. I'm curious kind of how you apply this to life in general. Like, so many people are kind of searching for that purpose in life. So I want you to kind of expand a little bit more on dharma, purpose, why we're here, what we're doing here.
Okay, sure. I can do that. So, dharma is a word that gets used in different traditions. The way Buddhists use it is not really the same way that yogis use it. It is and it isn't, but it's a little bit different. So traditionally, your dharma was your duty, like, to the caste system in India, right? If you were born into a Brahmin family, you had to be a Brahmin. That was what you did. If you were born into a merchant family, your duty was to become a merchant. And so it was a lot more straightforward in one sense. Like, you were born into it. You knew what it was, right? Like, nowadays we get to choose our dharma, which makes it a lot more confusing for everybody, right? But at the same time, it is still better, because if you were born into a Brahmin family and you didn't want to be a Brahmin, you were kind of fucking stuck, right? So that's not good either, right? So, if you wanted to be, and it worked out great for you, right? But so I think it is better that we figure out our individual dharma. And dharma is like a word that means duty, or so you can kind of think of it in levels, right? Like, we have universal dharma, which is that your duty to be a decent human being, right? To not run around punching people in the face and stealing things and taking advantage of other people, because that just causes more suffering, right? So everybody has that dharma, right? Like, and to work on yourself, like to do the work to improve as a human being, to not just be like, that's how I am. I hate when people say that, right? Like, that's the laziest thing you can say. Like, you're that way because you're not willing to do any work, right? So, that's universal dharma. But then individual dharma is like that life's purpose, like, what you were put here to do. I don't like putting it that way. It's more like what the universe is trying to do as you, through you.
Through your experience.
Yeah, right. Like, it's like, and it's usually not what you would pick for yourself. Like, that's the crazy thing, right? Like, if what I mean by that is, like, my ego had gotten to choose what Jordan Lashley's life was like, I would have been a rock star, and I would have died young on drugs and left a good-looking corpse. And that would have been my life. But that's not what the universe had planned for me, right? The universe, like, that period in my 20s, like, I literally tried to drink myself to death, and I couldn't do it. the universe wouldn't let it happen. Like, I had work to do. But what you can do is control the quality of the life that you're living. And your dharma and aligning with your dharma is a huge part of that, right? Like, as much as I tried to pursue those egotistical goals, like I want to be a rock star, I want to live hard and fast, like all it did was make me suffer. Like I was in so much, like life sucked, right? But even though becoming a yoga teacher was scary to me and I thought I didn't have the skill set, I was willing to just give it a try. And that's really what you have to do, is just try and see how it feels. And if it doesn't feel right, then you should move on. And if it does feel right, then you should keep going with the flow, right? And a big part of that is learning to trust what you feel and trust that, what I call your gut compass, because your intellect is full of the programming from society and your parents and what you were taught at school, and that stuff is going to say, this is what convention says, you can't do that. But the universe and what it wants you to do is often going to push you towards things that are outside convention, because the universe wants growth, and growth doesn't happen in convention. It happens by going outside those lines. And so following your gut compass means, like, this is what society tells me I should do. And when I think about going in that direction and making that choice, my stomach ties up in knots and I feel awful. My hands shake. I don't want to eat. I'm not sleeping well. That's suffering, right? That's your body telling you you're not supposed to be going that way, or right? Then you have this other choice that says, oh, your brain says, you can't do that. What are they going to think about you? What are your parents going to say, right? All these voices that come in. But when you think about doing that, your stomach relaxes and you actually get like a little excited in your heart. Like, it's scary to be able, but there's like this, I want to do that. And that's the way you have to go. Because pushing through that fear and that convention, that's where you step into your greatness. Everything awesome about you is on the other side of that fear. And so I can't tell you what your dharma is, but I can tell you that that's how you find it.
Yeah. Once you start tapping into the physical manifestations of your intuition and trusting that, life goes.
But that's where the yoga asanas, right? The postures, that's how they're subconsciously teaching you.
Okay, so can you expand on that?
Yeah, so like every time you come into the pose, right? Like I say, come into downward dog or come into tree, whatever pose you know, right? And I say, feel your body. And you feel your body, and I say, now what do you need to do with that pose? And you think, oh, I need to wiggle my hips a little bit, or I need to move my foot a little bit. And you listen to those sensations, and you do it, and then you become comfortable, and you become steady. And every time you do that, you're reinforcing with yourself that, yes, I can trust what I'm feeling, and yes, I do know what's best for me. And you're doing that at the physical level so that when you're confronted with a question or a challenge or a decision to make, then you can, yes, I can trust what I feel, and yes, I do know what's best for me. You've already proven that to yourself over and over and over again, which makes it easy to do, right?
Yeah, so that's like kind of, I guess, from your own journey with yoga, you were confused about how your life kind of started lining up better, you were trusting yourself more. The physical practice of yoga is so much more than the physical poses itself.
If we do it properly.
Yes.
Like, it can just be exercise. Like Brian Kest, he's a famous yoga teacher. He's famous for the line of saying, you have to put yoga in the yoga, or we're just doing Eastern calisthenics. Right? And that's the truth of it. Like, the teacher has to infuse that transmission. Right?
I mean, that's unfortunately too what yoga is a lot in the United States. Like, my first yoga classes in college, I had no idea about any philosophies, chanting, anything other than the physical postures, which I loved it. I always felt like very relaxed and more at ease, more kind of tapped into myself when I was doing the physical postures. But coming here, there's just so much more to the practice that I was never taught, kind of.
No, we've most places, and I say this, are participating in cultural appropriation. They've totally whitewashed the practice. They just took everything out that they didn't think was vanilla enough, and that's what you're getting. And I had to search, because the these teachings are like embedded just in the geometry of the poses and the way we do them. Like, think about like just the fact that everything's equal and opposite, right? And everything's in balance, equal work to equal rest. Like, that's teaching you fundamental principles about how the universe functions, right? Just in the way that you're doing them. So I think that even if you do fitness yoga poses for long enough, you're gonna start waking up to wanting more. It's just inevitable. Now that's when things get really frustrating though, because they've taken away everything and so if you want it, where do you find it? And it was incredibly hard. I had to like seek out teachers and books and I felt like I had all these pieces that didn't fit together. I was like, I've got this puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle, and I know they're all yoga, but I don't know how they become yoga. Yeah. Right?
So kind of going off of that, if you had advice for someone seeking more, like what books to read, what podcasts to listen to, YouTube videos.
Well, that's just it. Nowadays, you've got so many more resources than I did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So, listen to podcasts, read books, find a teacher that you click with, right? That's a big thing. Like, if you haven't done yoga, I think most people think yoga's yoga, right? Yeah. They don't think that Burning Wheel Yoga School is different from the gym yoga, right? They just think it's the same. Yoga's yoga, but it's not, and you know that now, right? So my advice to anybody is if you go to like the closest yoga studio to your house or to your work, and you're like, I didn't really care for it, yoga's not for me, that's not the right answer. Like, go find a different studio, go find a different teacher. Like, find somebody that lights you up and is giving you the stuff that you need. And when you're not getting what you need anymore, move on to a different teacher.
When you find that vibe that works best for you, it's addicting. Like, I remember when I first came here and I left being like, all right, when am I coming next? I guess this is my new spot now. And I've been coming many times a week, every single week since then.
But the reason for that is that I consistently deliver what I want to offer, and the people that want that click with it and come back.
Totally. It was very different than anything I'd ever experienced.
But if you don't want that, then it's fine. Like, I don't need to get I'm not trying to get everybody. I'm just trying to get the people that I can help, right? Okay. And the people that I can help are the ones that I click with, right? Because look, any relationship, whether it's a teacher and a student, or a lover, or a parent, or a best friend, what is the most important thing in that relationship?
Like a mutual
trust.
Mutual trust, yeah.
Right? And as a yoga teacher, my job is to shift your paradigm, right? Which means I have to take your whole worldview and turn your head. You're not going to do that if you don't trust me.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right? So a huge part of is just building that trust, that, I'm telling you the truth and you don't have to believe me. Actually, I don't want you to fucking believe me. I want you to go say, Jordan's crazy, but I'm going to try it anyway, just so that I can go back and tell him that he's fucking nuts. Go ahead, do it. Because that's how my practice went. Mm-hmm. And that's how the masters tell you that you should do it too. It's not about faith. You're not supposed to just blindly accept this stuff. You're supposed to wrestle with these concepts. You're supposed to be like, no, this goes against everything that I've been taught, and get upset and angry, but then see the truth of it.
Yeah.
And once you see the truth of it, then you're not suffering anymore.
Because also what I've learned is applying what you have taught me in yoga to my everyday life can get scary, honestly. Like, really seeing the world from a different perspective than everything you've ever known. So that trust is super important. Like, I remember I've come to you at different times being like, oh, this was an experience I had. It was pretty scary, overwhelming. I'm glad I had it, but wow, like, what the fuck type of thing. So that's so true, because I know that I wouldn't be able to have had that experience with just anyone. And I can tell the people here trust you, they trust the teachers, and they just trust the community. Like, everyone, whether they know it or not, is kind of on the same trajectory of just...
We're all on our path towards fulfillment.
Yeah.
And every one of those paths is different, but we're all on our path to fulfillment. And that's why we come together, because when you're standing in line at the grocery store with a bunch of normals, they're still you, and you understand that they're you, but they don't understand that. It's nice to be around people that are on the path.
Totally.
Because it gets lonely out there.
Yeah. Before coming here, I had always felt like differently about the world. I had all these thoughts in my head ever since I was a kid. And coming here, being able to talk about that, express that, and like be all sort of different ways, feel so many different emotions has been such a relief in my life, because it takes a certain type of person where you can feel comfortable enough to talk about these concepts with, and you don't really get that in everyday interaction. So that's been really an important and special part about Burning Wheel for me, is a community of weird people that are
they can show up exactly as you are.
Yeah,
you won't be judged. You can be a hot mess one day and we'll love you, and you can show up and be like a rock star the next day and we'll celebrate you.
I have showed up here in so many different ends of my spectrum, like the two extremes. So
yep.
That's I can definitely speak for that.
Speaking of the two extremes, right? Like that's what, if we're trying to achieve balance, we have to go to the extremes. Balance is something that you experience by going in between extremes. It's not something that you experience when you walk the tightrope or try to sit at the top of the mountain.
Life's boring like that.
That's complacency.
Yeah.
That's not where growth happens. You have to yes, you should do hot yoga and purify your body and connect with your spirit, and then you should go out and get shitty drunk and sing karaoke at the top of your lungs, and then and in between those two things you'll feel the balance.
Yeah.
You will feel a life of fulfillment. But if you don't do those things, then you feel like I'm not living.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally experience that too. Like for me, I do my best when I feel super uncomfortable too in different situations. So pushing yourself out of that comfort zone to grow, change, experience new things is something that not a lot of people do, because they're way too comfortable with who they are, their surroundings. They're scared of what's out there.
But again, that's something else that the postures taught you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've learned that like the places where you fall, right? The poses that you fall out of, the places where you're trying to get into the pose and you're almost there and then you wobble, that's the spot where you actually have the most potential for growth, right? And so that once you realize that, you see those places in your daily life, like, oh, I'm getting angry. Why am I getting angry right now? This is a place where I have potential for growth. If instead of just expressing my anger, if I become curious and say, why am I getting angry? This is something I need to study about myself, right? And get to the heart of the thing. It's not what they're doing. That's my response to what they're doing. Somebody else could have a totally different response to what they're doing. So why am I getting this response, right?
Yeah.
And then you start being like, I feel really awkward when I dance in front of other people. So now I'm going to go dance in front of other people because I know that's a place where I have the potential for growth.
Yep.
Right? Even if I never become a good dancer, that's not the point. The point is to get over that fear of dancing in front of other people, right? To feel that freedom of like, I'm just going to move my body and I'm awesome.
So kind of going off of that, I feel like I have been really challenging myself and figuring myself out a lot, taking a lot of what I've learned in yoga into my everyday life. And something I've struggled with is not pushing that on other people, but wanting to introduce my loved ones, my friends,
so hard.
my family,
to not become a proselytized to them.
Just understand what I've experienced, because like you said, go out there and experience it yourself. I'm curious how you kind of deal with other people not being as open-minded or as accepting to what you're doing, your practice, because I know that I'm not responsible for anyone else's actions and I can't change anyone, but there's some people that I wish I could just like write out a list of these are everything, like this is what you need to do in order to feel more fulfilled and have a better outlook on life. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, you can't. The best thing that you can do for anybody is to work on yourself. And then hopefully they see the change in you and they think, I want some of that too. And then they can do the work on themselves. But you can't make somebody work on themselves. And no matter how much you love them. And that's actually one of the worst parts about this is the people that you want to help the most with it, the people that you love, are often the people that are the most resistant and don't want to have anything to do with it. And so you can't. Like that So there's a couple things I say to myself. One is I go, well, they've got as many lifetimes as they need to figure it out, so it's not my job to rush them along, right? So there's that, right? I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it's just something I'm saying. I don't know if reincarnation's real. I have a kind of weird understanding of reincarnation. I don't think my individual soul comes out of this body and goes into another body. I think reincarnation is all of us. It's happening all the time. Like right now, this is just 2 incarnations of me talking. I'm talking to myself, right? Basically, I can only experience one of them at a time. So I feel this separateness, but I'm actually just 2 incarnations right now. So maybe that's just a pleasantry that I'm telling myself to get over the fact that I want to help my loved one and they won't accept it. It works. The other thing this is a better practice because this is real. And Ram Dass has this teaching where he says, if you're walking through the woods and you're looking at the trees, most of the trees are straight. And then there's this one tree that's like crooked and growing weird. And you look at it and you think, well, it must not have been getting enough sun or whatever, and for whatever reason it had to grow that way. But the point is that you just accept the crooked tree. You don't go over and try and make the tree straight like all the other trees, right? But yet when we get to people, we throw that shit right out the window. You should be this, you need to do this, blah, blah, blah. I need to do Why can't you just, if you love them, accept them as the crooked tree that they are and just love them?
Was that in your book? I remember that.
I think it's actually in my blog. Or maybe it's in my book.
Or maybe you said this to me before, because I remember you saying.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Our job is not to fix the people that we love. Our job is just to love them the way that they are.
Accept them as they are. Realize you're not responsible, too, for what anyone else is doing.
Nope.
So.
Nope. And it's incredibly frustrating because you feel like because they'll come to you and they'll talk to you about their suffering.
Yeah.
Right? And they'll be like, it's basically like they're saying, I'm thirsty. And you're like, here, have some water. And they're like, you don't get it. I'm thirsty. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. This makes you not thirsty. Will you please drink some?
Oh my God.
And they won't.
Totally.
But so I can't like hold them by the head and be like, drink the fucking water. Like that doesn't work. Like you can't do that. So all you can do is, all right, well, here's the water. If you decide you want to try it, that's it.
Yeah, I feel like too, I don't know if you've experienced this, but the more I work on myself, the more people that come to me kind of
because they see the change.
Help, but it's up to them to figure out if
it's the give me a pill mentality of America too, right? Like you tell them the answer and they're like, wow, that sounds hard.
It's massive and I'm like, symptoms instead of getting to the root cause.
Yeah, I'm like, like do you want to continue to suffer or do you want to like pick your hard, right? Like because what you're doing right now is hard too. You've just been doing it for so long, you've gotten used to it, right? Like if you try this, it'll be hard, but you'll feel more alive. Mm-hmm. You'll be happier. You'll be more fulfilled. Totally. So choose your heart.
Yeah. Working on yourself is tough.
It is.
It's a lot of determination, but a lot of ups and downs. It's never going to be linear too.
Is there any other, like, we're not existing to work jobs and make money. Our job is, we're here, we're alive to work on ourselves.
Totally.
Literally says that in the yogic text. All of your fears stem from your fear of death. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
And that the fear of death starts with avidya, ignorance of the true self. No, thinking that you're this body. And that's why you're afraid to die, because you think you're going to end when this thing dies, but that's not the end. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. So if you break this container, that energy has to go somewhere. Will this collection of memories and experiences that I call Jordan Lashley ever exist again? No, of course not. Right? But little bits of who I am will be in the collective consciousness, and those will wind up in other people, and that's reincarnation. Right? And the actions that Jordan Lashley makes in this life are going to have ramifications for future human beings, and that's karma. Mm-hmm. It's not about, if I'm a bitch, shit's going to happen to me. Like like the bumper sticker. I mean, that is true, but what you put out, you will get back. But it's more like collectively, right? Like
contributing to the
your generation
universal
is dealing with the karma of the fact that my parents' generation burnt fossil fuels like crazy. That's karma that you inherited, that you now have to deal with, right?
Yeah. Okay. Could you explain to someone who doesn't necessarily know about karma just a little bit more about that?
So the word karma just means action. That's all it means, right? But it, of course, in Sanskrit, there's all this implied meaning, right? It's like for every action, there will be an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if in this universe, like produces like, and the cause of a thing is always visible in the effect that it creates, right? You can apply that to anything. Go ahead, test me. You can just look at anything. The cause is always visible in the effect that it creates, and like produces like. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if I put a tomato seed in the ground, you're gonna get a tomato plant. And that tomato plant is gonna produce a tomato that's gonna have another seed in it. Cause is visible in the effect, see? But I can't put a tomato seed in the ground and expect an apple tree to grow there. That would be totally against the principles of the universe. So if that's a fundamental principle, that doesn't just work for apple seeds and tomato plants, that's true for punching someone in the face, causing harm. If I cause harm, I'm planting a negative seed that's gonna produce a negative result in my life at some point. If I do something kind for somebody, or that's planting a positive seed that's gonna produce a positive, right? So we tend to think of ourselves as yogis as mental gardeners. Like, what seeds am I planting? There's this period when you first start yoga practice where you're shifting, right? And so you stop planting all these negative seeds and you're planting positive seeds, right? But all these negative seeds that you planted in the past still have to flower. So you're like, all this negative stuff keeps happening and you're like, but I'm doing the work to plant the positive seeds. Well, yeah, you've got to get through you've got to reap what you've already sown, right? But once you've done that, now your positive seeds are going to start to grow and you're going to see your life improve. But I've seen so many people on the spiritual paths get derailed in that period where they're like, what the fuck, I'm doing the work and nothing's happening. Like, it's so like, I ate my green beans, I want my cake, right? Like, it's such a childish mentality. Like, no, you have to see the long haul. You're changing your life trajectory, and so that's karma. What you do will come back to you. What you plant, what you reap, you will sow. What you sow, you will reap.
All right.
And so, but collectively, as humanity, as one consciousness that's just being reincarnated over and over and over again 7 billion times, my actions are going to affect the future of future humans. And so that's karma too.
So going back to Dharma, you just have to be a good person, continue to plant those positive seeds, and just make the world a better place.
If the goal of yoga is to eliminate suffering in human life, think of how far it would get us if the first rule of yoga is ahimsa. Do not hit people in the face. Like, if we just did no harm, how much, do you realize how much suffering that would eliminate, just that one thing? It wouldn't get rid of all of it, but if we could all just stop hurting each other, let's just start with that. It's 2024, for fuck's sake. Like, we've been trying to use war to get peace for centuries, and it's never worked. Why do we still think that we can plant war, which is a negative, and get a positive peace? If you want peace, the only way to get that is to plant a positive seed.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, we've touched on a lot today. I guess wrapping this up, I am wondering what advice you would have for someone kind of looking to get more into the yogic journey, more into their spiritual path. Could be anything.
Find a teacher and read. Reading is huge. I hated reading when I was younger, but in yoga, if you want to learn, all of this information is in text. And you've got the internet now. Like, you've got like Swami Google. Like, literally every freaking resource for yoga is at your fingertips. Now, there's a lot of misinformation out there too, so you got to be careful. And you don't want to just say this. I read this one place, so it's true. Like, you want to get it, make sure you got consensus, but just start digging in. It's a freaking buffet that you'll never finish in one lifetime. So don't think you're going to get it all. Just start eating. Yep, and let's see where it takes you. And it's got all these different practices. So if you feel like doing poses isn't working, then meditate. And if meditating isn't working, then chant some mantras. Like that, there's a reason that there's all these different practices. Like I have students come back to me all the time. This drives me crazy. And they'll say, I haven't been doing any yoga. And I was like, well, you mean you haven't been doing the poses? And they're like, yeah. And I'll be like, well, have you been being kind to people? And they'll say, yeah. And I was like, have you been doing any meditation? Oh, 15 minutes a day. You've been doing yoga. You just haven't been doing yoga asana.
Yeah.
And sometimes your body needs to rest. Totally. And sometimes you need to kick its ass, right? That's, again, the balance, going to the extremes. I've gone months without doing yoga asana. And I've also done, months or years where I'm doing it every friggin' day, right? It's balance. You just do it. So my advice for you is just get started. Don't be scared. Just jump in. Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Jordan. This was great.
Cool. I had fun. I could talk about yoga all day.